Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. It's time for carriers. It's been a while, and for a good reason, because I had to practice a lot, because I was really crap at carriers. And I still am, a little bit less so maybe today. Because this is the Independence, the Tier 6 American light carrier. Now, during the Second World War, everybody realized relatively quickly that carriers were important. And the old doctrine had seen battleships as the backbone of a navy. But it turned out carriers actually were really, really good at what they were doing. So when war was looming and Pearl Harbor was about to happen, the Americans realized that they didn't really have a lot of carriers in the pipeline. And the new Essexes would come out around 1943 still. So they needed a rush job. They needed a couple of things that could carry planes and launch planes on the double. Because, things came down really to the knife's edge at some point. So they had a bunch of Cleveland hulls under construction. And they decided, against earlier judgment that said, no, these aren't really very suitable for conversion. They said, well, to hell with it. We need carriers and we need them now. Let's take these hulls, stick a flat top on them, and put some planes onto these things. And the outcome was the Independence class. A light carrier, because it's a cruiser hull underneath, and suddenly it's a little bit top-heavy because it's got a whole flight deck on it. They made it a bit broader, but in general, it retained a lot of the capabilities of a cruiser, most notably the speed, because these things were fast. So we're not talking about bogue level of pedestrian carrier mobility here. These things are proper quick. And that was very well, because these were in the end important parts of the Fast Carrier Task Force, which turned out to be the major force and the major power in the Second World War in the Pacific overall, and just obliterated pretty much anything that they came up against. Well, not the Independences by themselves, obviously, but in combination with the bigger fleet carriers, these things were immensely powerful. And Independence has contributed to a lot of things, to the sinking of the Musashi, Battle of the Philippines, spotting of the major Japanese counteroffensives, things like that. And she actually survived the war, was probably busy with Operation Magic Carpet in the end, because everybody was, getting the soldiers back home. And, she completed her days in glory by having a nuke dropped on her and surviving. Shared that fate with a couple of German ships, did she? So, great little ships these were, and more useful than initially anticipated. Now, obviously, being built on top of a cruiser, not a designated actual carrier hull, they had certain issues with the hangar space for once, and things like ammunition storage and other things. So they weren't great in design, but it goes to show that it's better to have something that just works okay when you need it, rather than having something perfect, but you never get enough of them to actually make a difference. German tigers. Anyway. Right, so in the game, what do we have here? Independence. Being a Cleveland hull at Tier 6 still means she's not super sturdy. But she is proper quick with 31 knots and very reasonable maneuverability out of the box for a carrier, for something this large. She has guns. Well, 2 of them. They're your off-the-shelf 120mm destroyer guns, and yes, you have 2 of them. You will probably not be using them very much. I have used them on occasion, but, you won't be using them very much. It's all about the planes. Now, again, this is a light carrier, a CVL, not a proper fleet carrier yet. So she gets a relatively small detachment of air groups. Actually, the Independence class carriers, as far as I remember, in history, only had fighters and torpedo bombers. Not, I think so. At least in the beginning, They might have gotten the dive bombers later, but here we get dive bombers, the good old Dauntlesses, the SBDs, and actually SBD I think stands for Scout Bomber Douglas, because they were manufactured by Douglas and they were scouts and dive bombers, and these things were very good. They were nicknamed Slow but Deadly, which I think is really, really neat. We get 15 of them, 1 air group, 4 planes in the group. We get the TBD Devastators, the old torpedo bombers, which were pre-war models and were somewhat outdated by the time. And they suffered from the abysmal performance of the airdrop torpedoes, just the same problem the submarines had. Unfortunately, that's not an issue in the game so much that we actually get the dud torpedoes here. But yeah, here we have one air group, 1 squadron, and 12 planes all in the hangar bay. Which means at least I tend to run out of planes occasionally in this ship, because you do get into tier 7 battles in this. One thing that we get new is the F4F, the Hellcats. No, sorry, these are the Wildcats. The F6Fs are the Hellcats. Yeah, the F4F Wildcats. We get a squadron of fighters. 3 fighters, 9 total in hangar, and 1 squadron. Now, this is the first time I actually had well, it's not the first time I've played fighters, but the first time I've actually had to learn how to do it right. Previously, my approach to fighters was drop them somewhere, let them patrol the area, and then pretty much forget about them. Which people have pointed out to me repeatedly is not the right way to do this. And I have done some research, and I've tried to get better in actually controlling my fighters. The AA, especially the small caliber AA, has an extremely short range, but it's actually very respectable. So while you don't have a large range to actually produce an air envelope with this ship, if anybody gets too close, she can shoot down a couple of planes by herself. And the surface detection with 7.4 isn't utterly terrible either. Now, for the elite bonus, no, I don't need more speed. Yes, 5% small caliber AA would have been nice, but in the end, I went with the prep time. And for a reason, because I actually used the fighter modification for the first module. Now, I've played around with both, and I think the fighter modification here isn't making a huge difference quite yet. So on average, per battle, I shoot down about 7 enemy planes, regardless if I have this or not. So it may be 1 more plane that I do. So I would have usually gone with the ground service system modification. The reason I haven't is because I tend to run out of planes in this thing very quickly, because she doesn't have so many to begin with. And again, you're playing tier 6, which means you get into tier 7 battles, which means you get into you face things like the West Virginia quite frequently, or other things that have been severely up A8. You play things like the Brooklyn, which are very unpleasant when you have these planes. So I found that with this module, I just ran out of planes 3/4 through the battle, which is annoying, and I might as well get used to using my fighters properly. Second slot, I actually increased the small caliber AA, which compensates for the other elite bonus nicely. You could use something like the propulsion mod if you want to go more into dodging. And I've got the concealment mod in the third slot because, again, she's quick enough. And I'd rather not get spotted if I don't have to, which allows me to play more aggressively and get closer to the battle without necessarily being spotted that easily. So that's how we got down to, what was it? 7.45 kilometers, plus whatever camo you're still sticking on this thing. Supplies. I'm still, well, obviously boosting my AA still more. You could do something like maintenance for hull, or you could do high-grade coal for more concealment. But I find that in this tier, at least, you still do get, especially if I play her more aggressively and try to add my carrier air cover to things, that having more AA is a good thing. And then the obvious other ones are speed boosts for the planes and hit point boost for the planes. My commander has come along, and Mr. Shaw here is, well, not extremely high level yet, So I'm rather excited for this one, for the dogfight specialist, which gives us better fighter efficiency. I haven't quite figured out what these efficiency numbers mean yet, but we'll get to that. But other than that, it's the standard complement. The return speed is, I think, absolutely essential, and everything else is built for damage control and recovery for those situations when you actually get focused by an enemy carrier, and for hit point restoration, because you don't get the air defense, so there's no point in using that. All right, so time to go for a battle. Now I've picked this battle because not because it was a huge damage numbers. I'm actually, well, I'm not still getting the huge amounts of damage with the carrier because my torpedo drops are still a bit wobbly, and I have gotten better with them. But this one is all about the fighters, and that and the reason why you shouldn't try to carrier snipe. Now, no more spoilers, but you'll see what's coming, because it's both why you shouldn't do it and how you deal with it if it's done to you. All right, so where we are at straight. We're playing top tier, and there's an enemy independence over there. Let's go and see and do that. Fighters. It turns out fighters need as much babysitting as torpedo planes. Who would have thought? The very first thing you kind of want to try and do with fighters at the opening stage of the battle is bait the enemy fighters into a dogfight, because once they lock on, you can't control them anymore. And you do that by setting a waypoint such that you go past them, so your fighters don't lock on, and then you can drag them over your friendly AA. That's kind of what I'm going to try and do here. So first things first, full speed ahead and get my fighters out. Now we're cross-spawning. So I know where the enemy carrier is. He's up there in the northeastern corner. So I'm sending my my dive bombers and my torpedo bombers out there, and there come his fighters. So I'm trying to set a waypoint of my fighters past his fighters to get them to lock onto mine, and then I want to drag them into that pulk of ships over there on the western side, like over here. Nuremberg's not having the greatest AA, so now they're stuck. He can't control them anymore. There's an Arizona. That thing has probably reasonable AA. So I'm dropping my fighters over there, and getting the help from the Arizona's AA. In the meantime, I'll get some drops onto the Nurembergs. We've got one plane down. That's been some torpedo drops, but I dropped too far away, I think. And I got to get back to my fighters. Okay, I think the Arizona killed the rest of the friendly fighters. Now, look what the carrier is doing. The carrier, and I'm getting too far ahead of myself here, the carrier seems to be dropping me. Yes, we have found ourselves a carrier sniper. So I'm beaching on this island, just to, throw him off a little bit and get my fighters back. Now I'm trying to lead my fighters such that... yep, this was some torpedo hits. No flooding. I'm trying to lead my fighters such that they're staying ahead. They're getting their waypoints ahead of the enemy air group, and that way, they can stay on them, basically, and they can chase them. That should have been 4 hits, really. Now the Dunkerque's getting a little close here, but he's perma-flooding and he's on fire, which is reasonable. And I'm just going to back off a little bit and again get my fighters out here. Dive bombers, yep, fighters. Now I could have pulled my fighters back a little bit, but his were over there. And I think they're just outside range. That's the problem. They're outside the range of the small caliber A, which is where the independence really shines. But he's vectoring his fighters over. And I'm parking myself next to that New Mexico over there, American battleship. It's having a very good AA, so I'm just going to use that to defend. And again, the carrier is relentless. He's going after me. He's ignoring the rest of my team. So while he's doing that, I'm still inflicting, well, not devastating amounts, but serious amounts of damage onto the enemy team. So we got a couple of good hits and another flooding on that New Mexico over there. And again, I'm getting torpedo plane dropped. So I'm just gonna switch the speed around. Maybe able to drop, maybe able to dodge one of them. While he's inflicting damage on me, he's not gonna be able to kill me like that. So I'm moving out again. And again, I get my fighters. Look at this. I'm getting my fighters to chase his dive bombers. No, these are torpedo bombers. They chase his torpedo bombers until I get the last one, and then I'm sending them back again to chase his dive bombers on the other direction. And in the meantime, dropping some things. Okay, that New Mexico is dead. Who can we drop? Dallas. Dallas out there. Yeah, let's drop her. She's alone. And, well, she's just tier 6, so not that terrible yet. He's got good AA, but not that terrible yet. Another 2 planes down. And I don't think he got his dive bombers back. Alright, torpedo bombers out for the Dallas. Because there's one of our destroyers vectoring in. And I just want to make sure that I protect him. Now the Dallas is doing the right thing. He's turning hard and beaching himself. So he only takes 1 torp, otherwise he would have been dead right here. And again, I'm getting my fighters out because there are torpedo bombers coming. There's a Fushun. And the Fushun might need some help against the Dallas. So again, I'm getting the fighters out, and then I'm dragging the fighters to follow the torpedo bombers. Yeah, well, Fushun is safe from the carrier. He's going after me. So I'm just chasing after the torpedo bombers, and just trying to shoot something down here. Yeah, that's 1. And the AA is actually working them over as well here. Just chasing them left and right. There's 2. And as he gets 2 torpedoes off, but I'm varying my speed here. And there's another one, and he doesn't get any one of those back. Okay. Well, there's not much left at this point. Let's send them some more torpedo bombers out. Oh, these torps look good. These are probably Fushun torps. So that Dallas should be dead. Then we're just going after the Nürnberg. And I think one of their DDs over there might be AFK. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a kill shot on the Dallas. Well done, Fushun. He can sing the Podvoisky there. And I'm going to give him air cover against the Nürnberg. Just to make sure that he can do this undisturbed. Yep, he takes out the Podvoisky with his guns. Smokes up because there's a Nürnberg coming. That's fine, I got this. I think the carrier is dead, so no more danger from that. He tries to turn. He tries to turn, but he's on such low health that even 2 torpedoes are going to get him. There we go. And we still get a clear skies for our efforts. So, this is why you don't carry a snipe. Especially not in this tier anymore. Look, I was able to survive. He has done damage to me, but he hasn't done catastrophic damage to me. He hasn't been able to take me out halfway through the battle and then use the rest of his time to support his team. And let's take a look how much damage he did to me. I've shot 22 planes down by myself. Not all of them with fighters, obviously, but the fighters help because also they soften the targets up. So once the AA kicks in, you actually get to the point that you can that you can do something about them. So he hasn't done a huge amount of damage. And I have survived, and I have been able to, well, also not doing an extreme amount of damage because the battle was relatively short, but I was able to use my planes to assist my team, to hit enemy targets, to inflict damage, to support destroyers, to spot things, to keep cruisers at bay, all the while using my fighters and my AA and positioning, really. So position yourself next to an American battleship is always a good idea. In order to pretty much completely negate the impact of the enemy carrier. So that's, again, I'm totally not an expert on this quite yet. I'm working on it, but that's how you can, well, that's how you use your planes. Your fighters need to be babysat. They need to be positioned correctly. They shouldn't probably sit in one place and guard. That's what I've kind of taken away from everything I've researched so far. They shouldn't be sitting just in one place and wait for some way to lock onto something, but you should actively hunt enemy formations with them. Anyway, that's it for today. It's getting more difficult, so don't expect the Ranger anytime soon. I still have to learn how to do all this properly, but I'm enjoying myself. I'm not a complete noob anymore, I think, when it comes to CVs, so I'm enjoying myself. Anyway, that's it for today. See you all next time. Bye.